with that, it's really important to know that I put together some scans for a QR code. There's also some note cards. One of the things that we in the CTL have been really trying to grapple our heads around this summer is how can we better support the campus? Is that going to be open office hours where you come in and work on your teaching materials and have us here to help? Is it one-on-one feedback sessions? Is it trainings that are focused on specific dimensions of digital accessibility that we will need to kind of work towards before April 2026? And so we would like to invite you to co-create what that support looks like, because we can all day do workshops and lunch and learns, and if no one shows up, it's really not serving anyone. And so we want to make sure that we get your input as a way to help us co-develop and co-create what that looks like. And if it's something like, we want you to come to our division or we'd like our division to come into the CTL for a particular Friday, please let us know what that is. We're here to try to help support that. So Title II. So Title II has been around for a long time, right? A little bit of historical. The American with Disabilities Act is obviously the federal law that prohibits discrimination based on disability. And it was the Department of Justice that really kind of in 2018 started to say, we need to have more parameters on what that looks like. And then in 2023, they really developed those parameters and they've been updating them ever since. Now, what we are working towards is a particular level of accessibility, which is on the next slide. But it's really important to know that as a public institution, we are all legally required to make our digital content accessible to all, right? So I think one of the things that we've been really good at is a lot of our content already has, for example, videos have closed captioning. We're going to take that a little step further. So I'll give you an example in just a second. But this whole guidelines that were really more prescriptive and provided more of a framework for how you make digital accessibility possible for all needs is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And again, we're striving to do level 2 AA. That's what it's called, level 2 AA, right? There's a level 3, and that's like excellence, like you just have blown it out of the water. But level 2 is a kind of a comprehensive look at your materials and or any student-facing content. So right now I've been talking a lot about teaching materials because in the Center for Teaching and Learning, that's kind of one of the areas that we assist with. But you may see that we also have marketing that is working on website accessibility. Anything that has to do that is student-facing is really required to get to these guidelines by April 2026. Any immediate questions?
Liz, thank you so much. And I can attest that you've been asking about this for a while because it's all recorded on some of the times that you've asked about this. This also include Canvas courses that we use for students in other areas of the college.
Absolutely, yes. So if you have a student advisor that has a field of interest, let's say Canvas course that's really informational for students as a way for them to get access to what does that mean? How do they set up a meeting with an advisor? That also does comply. Yeah. And that's the next one. Yeah, go ahead.
The WAG or Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 level AA. So that's where we're our target. Is that just a straight or is that something that the district decided that is the target that we're getting to?
No, that is national. Nationally, we are required to do that. And there's also some other countries that have been striving towards these, but since we're in the United States and the Department of Justice, right, this is national what we're trying to get to. So basically, and you'll see in Dr. Armour's email to faculty on Friday, she talks about how one violation leads to a fine. It's a financial fine. 2 leads to another, so it's really important to know that one of the reasons why some of the, it's taken us a while to get here is because we are one district. If there is somebody at Phoenix College that isn't compliant, and someone at Glendale Community College that isn't compliant, because we're all gonna be great. I'm not gonna put us in that, then technically that affects us all. So that would be because we are one district. And so this is one of the reasons why sometimes we want to create a system-wide approach to this topic. And like I said, it just took us a lot longer to get here than I think a lot of us would have felt comfortable. Yes.
I read that email from Provost as well, and she said, the $75,000 fine. Who pays that? The district?
So I don't quite know that yet, but I'm sure if it's the district and then maybe they put the fine to the colleges, I'm not 100% sure
Yeah.
that.
And I asked that not to be
But I will
nitpicky, but it seems like whoever has the legal responsibility should be the one coordinating how we ensure compliance. Like it goes from the top down. Right?
Yes.
Instead of it's great that we're all wanting to make our material accessible for all learners, which I'm behind 110%. But at the end of the day, for compliance, it's whoever holds the bill needs to be the one that ensures it.
Correct. And I will share that one of the ways that the district has sort of approached this is that each campus has a task force that is basically working towards this compliance. And so on our campus, I can share some of the people who are on it. We've got Jonathan Robles, Alyssa Manzuelo, Jill Nico, Najma and I, Eric, Amy Hill, trying to think who else was on there. And the group continues to grow and evolve. The deans, yes, sorry, deans. And then we also had student affairs besides Jill, there was someone else. But the idea is this task force, right? We are here to help support and I will share, there's been a meeting this summer to kind of make some of those efforts happen. And then within academic affairs, there's been even a co-group that has been developed as well. Because the idea is we, again, in the CTL are here to support, but we cannot implement these changes within people's courses. UJA is a tool that we're also learning to figure out. And we don't even know at what level of administrator access we in the CTL would have. So would we have just viewer access or would we be able to make any changes? We obviously can't make changes to people's courses, but maybe would we be able to run reports? We still don't know what that looks like on our CTL level. And so this is why I'm saying this is an evolving topic and we're learning as we go. So these are going back to some of the questions that were asked just a second ago. So college websites and mobile applications. So going back to Canvas, Canvas has a mobile application, right? So besides it being our learning management system, because it also is a mobile application, that is another reason why Canvas is checked twice, right? Any of our course content, so syllabi, lectures, instructional videos, readings. So here's if you're using an OER, technically, even though it is a third party that maybe you're using, that also has to be compliant. And I will share, there has been some amazing work being done of almost like an accessibility, when you read a recipe and you can see your, how many calories and what's the nutrition facts. There have been some tools that have actually created an accessibility, here is how we're compliant, as a way for you to kind of see, is this a good tool for me to integrate? And so that's, again, an evolution of this work and how companies are also kind of coming to the cause for that. Yes.
So Liz, there are areas of the academic sphere that use other software for their LMS or in conjunction with Canvas. How are those tools being evaluated?
Well, so this is where UJA can help. So UJA, once you have something integrated into your Canvas course, it basically runs reports. It kind of scans and runs reports. And you'll see today, when we saw the second look of UJA on last Wednesday, there is some brand standards that show you this means you're doing pretty good. This means you have a little bit of work and this means you have a lot of work to do. So that is what the tool is really intended to be, kind of a remediation, if you want to say, tool that scans the content in Canvas or maybe even on a website to be able to identify where do I put my efforts. And so if you have something integrated into a Canvas course, like let's say more, I believe that it would also run more through some of that. If not, I'm sure more has probably already done some work in relation to this because they're such a valuable OER within higher education. But those are just some things to keep in mind. And again, things that we would like to do here in the CTL today is get your questions so that we can ask, you know, other CTLs at the district level, you know, so that we can kind of learn and address this issue together. I will share us as CTLs have been working during the summer on lots of various different things, but this is one topic that a lot of CTLs are like, we're just gonna learn together and figure it out. I think one person, and Eric, you may attest to this, they all said, this feels like we're back in March 2020, when the world turned upside down. And all of a sudden, all hands were on deck. I think that's kind of how some of CTLs are kind of referring to this work as well. Did you have something to add, Najma?
I was just gonna say, there is another group at District Two, and you probably know this, Liz, that's also looking at additional third-party tools to make sure that they are ADA compliant. They're getting, it's called their VPAT, which is like a report card, from what I understand, of how compliant they are. So I do know that there are other groups that are looking at the additional tools that live within Canvas that integrate with Canvas. And so there's multiple layers of reviews.
And so, and then anything after the deadline, so the deadline is April 24th of 2026. After the deadline, any social media posts that we generate as a college would have to also have these guidelines.
You say, you don't have administrative access yet.
Not yet.
Do you anticipate that if you do, you'll be able to kind of run analytic reports on what are the most common problems that are facing in our campus courses and maybe target?
I'm hoping. Yes, I'm hoping. I'm hoping, like, this is where, again, we're like, we wish we had had more information on the tool earlier to be able to more proactively. And so, yes, this is some of the things that we're trying to figure out. Like I said, last Wednesday, they were like, we're still trying to figure out what level we give local CTLs administrator access. So, and we have not gotten an update between now and that. And today.
We also requested to separate training for admins, instructors. More information, because like Liz mentioned, it's been, okay, we just got our train the trainer session last week. And it was, I mean, you can imagine it was all a district. So so much information thrown at one time. And it's, so I personally asked them, like, well, hey, is there any way? I mean, I know they're going to do training at noon, but is there any way that we can get more personalized training if we need for our faculty at each campus? Because even though it's going to be recorded, you might have a question that necessarily is not addressed in the recording. So I'm actively also trying to push for more, like, okay, this is a tool that we're using. We need the support for our faculty here, or at each individual campus.
You said that the WCAG 2.1, that level A is where we need to have is the list that applies to, that's where we need to, that's the list.
Correct.
That satisfies that.
Correct. Yeah, so anything that is student facing. So one thing to just note, Google sites, if you have like a division Google site and it's not public, that does not comply. It's anything that's public facing and student facing that complies. So if you're like, oh my gosh, now I have to also worry about my division Google site that is really only available to your division, that would not comply. That would not need to comply. Yes.
So this, Yusha, will scan stuff, tell us how we're doing. Are there, I guess what I'm trying to find out is, okay, so this is how we're doing now to make it comply. Are there AI technologies to assist with that? Or is this all going to be manual labor on the part of whomever runs the thing?
So one thing that I will say that was exciting about Yuja, I just haven't had a chance to play with it myself, is it will give you tips on how to make it. So like if it's on a page and something is not compliant, like click here to read more, which is one of the examples, like you can't necessarily say click here to read more because the screen reader wouldn't know to click, right? And so you would need to be more descriptive. My understanding is Yuja has like a pop-up box that would flag that and say, this is what you need to do to make it compliant. And so I believe that's how it's gonna work. What I also heard was that if something is done on a page, that I think Yuja somehow scans, so I'm sure there's some AI built into some of this. Yuja scans all the pages where that content is and it updates it for you. That's how they mentioned it to us last week. But again, I haven't had a chance to personally work with the tool to be able to say, yes, that is exactly what it'll do. And so this is why the meeting on, hopefully at noon, we'll have more details and information to help with that, yeah.
So how is Yuja different from You Do It in Canvas?
So Yuja is not just for Canvas. My understanding is Yuja can also go to some of the websites and things like that. You Do It is the specific Canvas product. And Nandra, you may be able to say, I hear that Yuja is even more comprehensive. That's what I heard. Yeah, I saw another hint. Yes.
Public and student. So what trumps student facing versus public facing? So help me understand.
I would think that as a college of higher education, everything we have public is student facing.
Yes.
I would think. And so I would say that's what it is. Maybe, like I said, like a Google site that is just faculty in a division. And it's like, I will share, we in the CTL made our Google site public because we had heard from adjunct faculty sometimes when we're registering and we're not logged in, it's like giving us all these barriers. So we were trying to reduce that. We were told you have to make your CTL private or basically within Maricopa only, because then that helps to have one less thing for the college to look at in terms of the compliance of these particular standards. So.
And they're not necessarily in conflict, because, good ADA clients would work for public or for student facing, I think.
So I'll go through some examples. So one thing, and this is something that we've shared in Fractal meetings and things like that, because this ASU has this great image accessibility generator. And so if you haven't ever used it, this is free and easy to do. So if you are uploading something into maybe a document that you're using with students or your Canvas course, you can actually put your image here and it will create through AI alternative text that would be compliant, is my understanding, right? And so here are some examples, just really quick. Let's say you have, does anyone know who this person is? Rosa Parks, yeah, Rosa Parks. So let's say that you had this in your, a student-facing website or in your course, and you put as alternate text picture of a person. That would not be compliant, right? Because what person, who, so the way you would basically make this better is a portrait of Rosa Parks, the key figure in the civil rights. So you would need to put more context so that the screen reader, for example, would be able to really help that student understand what that image is and who is being featured. Right, and so when I share this presentation, you'll see ASU actually has some really great, and they have Canvas too, so that's why I use them. They have some really great just tips here on how you can do that. And then again, there's that kind of free accessibility creator for that alt text that can help as well. So I'll share this out with everyone who's here. Yeah. All right. The other thing to just kind of mention is videos. Now, we all already, I think, use closed captioning in our videos. Transcripts, people would say, are a really great way. That's a universal design for learning, that you can always, with a video, put a transcript. Think about students who, and this is where accessibility benefits us all. Think about students who are, you know, in the student union and they are about to eat lunch and there's a lot of noise and they just can't hear the audio of your video. So they can read the transcript and still get access to that content. The one thing that is also going to be required are audio descriptors for pre-recorded videos. So if you create a lecture of your, or a video announcement, I do weekly video announcements for my students, that would be considered a pre-recorded video. I would also need some audio descriptors. So let me give you a very quick, like, what does that mean? So if everyone could close their eyes for just a second. And I'm just gonna play like 30 seconds of this. Okay, can anyone tell me what happened in that particular video? Monkey laughing, okay. Wind blowing, okay.
News running.
Someone was running, okay. This is what the audio descriptors will now be.
From the creators of Tangled and Wreck-It Ralph, Disney. A carrot-nosed coal-eyed snowman shuffles up to a purple flower peeping out of deep snow.
Hello.
Sorry, I did a little bit more there. But the idea that, again, if someone isn't have low vision or someone does not have the ability to see, right, all that ambient noise didn't really make sense for them. And so how do you put more context? And I will share that Dan Reichstein has been working over the summer on using AI to help with some of this. And he's found some small hacks that he thinks we'll be able to share. The thing here is that we, because don't know exactly how much usual we'll be doing, right? We don't know, like, if we do that hack, is that like not needed? Because usually it's gonna be helping us with some of that. So that's something to just kind of mention. And I know we're at 2 minutes until the big reveal of the presentation. Document accessibility is another thing. So adding headers to your document, using color contrast. There is this really great website that I've been kind of peeking out throughout the summer that gives you just kind of some quick videos. There's that alt text as another example, color contrast. And so again, we'll share some of these resources. These are not Maricopa resources. These are resources from across just the blogosphere, the World Wide Web of people who have been working on this particular guidelines. And so last thing to share, 1 minute until the big is, you know, we do have a local Title II task force. And so this is their email address for us to be able to ask questions, get some more clarity and understanding. I think they are in the same boat. They're trying to get clarity and understanding on USIA, but we'll get there. Of course, we in the CTL are here for you. Your CTL@estrellamountain.edu is the best way to get in touch with us. And then the district office has their digital accessibility site, which tells you even some of the work groups that are making some of this work happen, some of these decisions happen at the district level. And with that, that's it for today. Just a very brief unpacking. Please, again, share your questions. Give us your ideas of how we can better support you.